Writing the West. Stories and poems by Rick Stever. Read by Michael Messner and friends. The Kid and the Footrace. Back in the late 1860s, a baby-faced, skinny kid roamed the West searching for unsuspecting runners to engage in foot races for money. His immature looks were deceiving. The kid actually was a trained circus performer and a professional foot racer. To his credit, the kid was a neat dresser, extremely polite, and a talkative sort. His appearance in a town usually coincided with a county fair or some other celebration that would guarantee a large crowd. His scheme was to strike up a cordial conversation with a group of men about some innocuous subject like the weather or fishing prospects, and work the discussion around to the topic of foot racing. In due time, he would offer to run against the local champion, telling the men,
"I'm pretty fast. Anyway, pretty fast for a kid. I've got some money. I'll take your bets."
One time, the kid was put up against a burly farmer. The farmer agreed to the foot race on the condition he be allowed to name the place and distance. The kid responded with a confident smile.
"Fine by me."
After all bets were placed, the farmer led the way to the edge of town. He pointed to a freshly plowed field and announced that they would race to the far fence and back. The kid got off to a fast start, but soon tired in the soft soil. He had the speed, but not the strength of the farmer, and before long the kid was having trouble even lifting his feet. The farmer was the clear-cut winner. That day, the kid learned a valuable lesson. Merely being fast on your feet does not always win the race. Sometimes you have to use your head, too. Discovering the Columbia. At 4 a.m. on May 11, 1792, Captain Robert Gray and his ship, the Columbia Rediviva, stood off the entrance of a great river. The ship's log noted the wind was blowing strong out of the west. Breakers were visible running in a line from shore to shore, and there appeared no visible opening. Gray warily scanned the bar, located the safest point to cross, and ordered sails set. According to the ship's log,
at 8 a.m., being a little windward of the entrance to the harbor, bore away and run in east-northeast between breakers, having from 5 to 7 fathoms of water. When we were over the bar, we found this to be a large river of fresh water, up which we steered. Many canoes came alongside. At 1 p.m., came with a small bower in 2 fathoms, black and white sand. The entrance between the bars bore west-southwest, distance 10 miles. The north side of the river, a half-mile distance from the ship. The south side, the same, 2.5 miles distance. Natives came alongside.
The Great River of the West had been discovered, and Captain Gray claimed it for the United States of America and named it after his ship, the Columbia. Liberty. Statue of Liberty faces east, her back to America, never acknowledging native people, those who were here before she took up residence. Feet firmly planted in New York Harbor. Pilgrims, colonists, freedom fighters. Just more interlopers. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, from sea to shining sea, a blind eye to the past. Destruction of tribes and cultures in the name of manifest destiny. Forced onto reservations, placated with casinos, selling fireworks, cheap smokes. That's America. Flying Mustanger. Frank Stinton of McDermott, Nevada, was a Mustanging pilot back in the 1930s. Here are some of his memories.
A good pilot can move a band of Mustangs 20 miles and never get a hair wet. That's the way it's supposed to be done. The secret is to stay back. You never made a pass directly over them. What you try to do is stay behind, cutting figure eights back and forth and gently push them the direction you want them to go. Now, horses handle better in bunches of 8 or 10. One time I brought in 18 head, but that was nothing but blind luck. Now, you can pick out a stud and a few mares, take them to the trap, and circle back for more. I would work an area all day and maybe have between 50 and 150 head in the corral by the time the sun set. To be a flying Mustanger, you didn't necessarily have to be an aerobatic pilot, but you did have to be able to catch up drafts and ride air currents because planes of that vintage had gas tanks that only gave you a couple of hours in the air. Now, the best description I can think of is to describe that type of flying when I say it was by the seat of your pants.
Frank was a strong, active man, but at the age of 37, he contracted polio and was paralyzed. Doctors told him if he had delayed coming to the hospital by even a day, the polio would have killed him. He spent a month in an iron lung. Frank closed this interview by saying that the hardest adjustment for him was realizing he would never be able to pilot another plane and that he would never Mustang again. From time to time, friends would take him up in their planes, and when they did, he was constantly searching the horizon for the telltale signs of dust. If dust was rising, that meant wild horses were on the move. Missouri Mule. William Jenkins was a boy of 10 when his family headed west over the Oregon Trail. In his later years living on the southern Oregon coast, William would sometimes tell the story about the night he stood guard.
Well, there we was, camped in the middle of nowhere. I'd been pestering the men for weeks to let me stand guard, and that night they let me. Well, they gave me explicit instructions, said if anything of a suspicious nature or anything at all happened during the night, I was to signal by firing a shot in the air. Well, one of them gave me an old blunderbuss. They all went to bed to sleep, and I could hear them snoring away there. A big old silver moon was casting an eerie light. Not enough to say anything but dim shadows, though. There was night sounds, a coyote howled, and one of the dogs from the wagon train barked. A horse snickered and pawed the ground. Like I said, you couldn't see much of anything, but there was this Missouri Mule in close near me and the fire. And all at once, that mule's ears shot forward, pointing into the dark like something was out there. Well, I figured that was enough. I cranked off around, and the camp was instantly in turmoil. Men dressed in long johns, armed to the teeth, running around looking for something to shoot. Well, I explained why I blazed away, and they scolded me, saying that the darn kid woke us up for nothing.
But the next morning, the men found a Native American hair rope down among the horses. Someone had been trying to steal them during the previous night. Maybe that Missouri Mule wasn't so dumb after all. You've been listening to Writing the West. The stories and poetry in this podcast are by Rick Stieber and appear in books by him. Log on to www.rickstieberauthor.com to find out more. This program was produced by Michael Messner by permission of the author. Special thanks to Michael Tucker and Art Shingler. Thank you for listening.